Ever wonder why kings needed an entire squad just to eat breakfast? From food tasters dying so monarchs could live, to jesters who were actually spies in disguise, royal survival was a wild team sport. Let's meet history's most dangerous jobs. Let's talk about the ultimate high-stakes eating competition, being a royal food taster. These folks didn't sign up for a cushy food critic job. They were basically playing Russian roulette with their taste buds 3 times a day. Every bite could be their last, testing everything from wine to roasted peacock before it touched the king's lips. And here's the crazy part. If they started sweating, turning green or, dying, that was actually them doing their job perfectly. They'd just saved the monarch from a deadly dinner. Some food tasters even developed special techniques, like touching food to their tongues first or waiting an hour after tasting before giving the all clear. Talk about a job with zero room for error. Think bodyguards were just big guys in sunglasses. The Praetorian Guard would like a word. These ancient Roman super soldiers started as elite bodyguards but ended up becoming kingmakers themselves. They protected emperors, sure, but they also assassinated quite a few when the salary package wasn't cutting it. Fast forward to medieval times, and you've got the Swiss Guard, still protecting the Pope today with those fancy striped uniforms. But don't let the outfits fool you. These guys are highly trained modern warriors. And speaking of modern, today's Secret Service agents might look cool in their suits and earpieces, but they're carrying enough high-tech gear to make James Bond jealous. Some things never change, though. Being a bodyguard still means you're ready to take a bullet for someone else. Think your job is stressful? Try being a medieval cupbearer. These brave souls weren't just fancy waiters. They were the last line of defense between a king and a killer cocktail. Every time they poured wine, they had to take the first sip themselves. Talk about a risky happy hour. The position was so important that only nobles could do it. And they had to master a wild set of skills. They learned to detect weird tastes, spot suspicious colors, and even recognize the faint smell of common poisons. The really skilled ones could tell if wine had turned bad just by looking at how it moved in the cup. And get this, some cupbearers wore special rings that would change color if they touched poisoned drinks. It was basically CSI, medieval edition, but with more wine and way higher stakes. Being a royal doctor in medieval times was like playing a high-stakes game of medical Jenga. One wrong move, and it wasn't just your patient's health on the line, it was your head. These docs had to juggle wild treatments like bloodletting with leeches, prescribing ground-up unicorn horn, actually narwhal, and dealing with kings who'd read some random health tip in a monastery book. Imagine trying to convince Henry VIII that no, rubbing a chicken on his gout won't help, while knowing he had a habit of executing people who annoyed him. Plus, if their royal patient died from natural causes, everyone assumed it was the doctor's fault anyway. These poor physicians had to be part doctor, part magician, and part diplomat, all while working with medical knowledge that was about as reliable as a chocolate teapot. Here's something wild. Those silly jesters in floppy hats were actually medieval intelligence agents. While everyone was laughing at their jokes and pratfalls, these crafty performers were gathering secrets like medieval James Bonds. They could roam anywhere in the castle, eavesdrop on private conversations, and even insult the king without losing their heads. The best part, nobody suspected the fool in the corner. Kings often used their jesters as personal advisors because, hey, who else could tell them the brutal truth wrapped in a joke? Some jesters even carried messages between kingdoms. Their goofy reputation made them the perfect secret couriers. Talk about hiding in plain sight. You might think being in charge of the king's closet sounds like a sweet gig, but the master of the wardrobe had to deal with more than just fashion emergencies. These folks were basically the world's first chemical weapons detectors. They had to check every inch of the royal outfits for contact poisons, hidden needles, and even cursed items. Assassins loved sneaking deadly substances into clothes, especially things like poisoned shirt collars or toxic boot polish. The master had to personally inspect each new garment, supervise the washing process, and even test the soap. Yeah, you heard that right. They literally had to taste the royal laundry supplies. And don't even get me started on the glove situation. Those were basically murder mittens waiting to happen. Let's shine a light on the most sleep-deprived job in history, the Royal Night Watch. These guards pulled the ultimate all-nighter every night just so kings could catch their royal Z's. But this wasn't your average security gig. They had to master the art of seeing in the dark, no flashlights back then, memorize every creaky floorboard in the castle, and stay alert enough to tell the difference between a shadow and an assassin at 3 a.m. The really fun part? They used special knocking patterns and passwords that changed nightly. Mess up the secret knock, and you might find yourself explaining to a bunch of very awake, very armed guards why you're wandering around at midnight. Let me tell you about medieval falconers. These weren't just people playing with fancy birds. They were basically running airborne food safety operations. Sure, they trained hawks to hunt, but their real job was making sure the king's meat wasn't tampered with. From the moment their birds caught the game to when it hit the royal plate, falconers kept that meat under constant watch. They had to spot signs of poison, disease, or tampering that could turn the king's pheasant dinner into his last meal. Plus, they needed serious skills to handle these razor-clawed predators. One wrong move and you'd lose more than just your job. Those beautiful hunting birds were basically medieval attack drones with feathers. Okay, let me introduce you to the ultimate royal fighter, the king's champion. This wasn't your average knight. They were basically a medieval version of a heavyweight champ, but with way higher stakes. These warriors had one job: challenge anyone who questioned the king's right to rule to a fight to the death. At every coronation, they'd ride into Westminster Hall on horseback, throw down their gauntlet, and basically say, "Anyone who thinks this king shouldn't rule, come fight me." Most times, nobody was brave or stupid enough to accept. The champion got sweet perks, though. They kept the horse they rode in on, the royal cup they drank from, and even got to sit at the king's table. Ready for the weirdest job in royal history? Meet the whipping boy, the kid who got punished when the prince misbehaved. See, nobody could hit a future king, even when he was being a total brat. So they came up with this bizarre solution: get another noble kid to take the punishment instead. These boys grew up with the princes, shared their lessons, and became their best friends. But there was a twist. Princes often behaved better knowing their buddy would get smacked for their mistakes. It's like having a friendship with built-in guilt trips. Some whipping boys even turned their painful position into a sweet deal, earning royal favors and high positions later in life. Talk about taking one for the team. And there you have it, the most dangerous jobs in royal history. Thanks for joining this wild ride through medieval workplace hazards. Hit that like button, subscribe for more historical adventures, and share with a friend who complains about their job.